Hey boo, it's me, Lucy Sugu, your favorite gender studies professor who lives on the internet. And today I am really happy to be in conversation with Dr. Savannah Shange, who is an associate professor of anthropology at UC Santa Cruz, where she also serves as principal faculty in critical race and ethnic studies. She earned a PhD in Africana Studies and Education from the University of Pennsylvania, a master's in teaching from Tufts University, and a bachelor's in fine arts in experimental theater from Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. Her first book, Progressive Dystopia, Abolition, Anti-Blackness and Schooling in San Francisco, Duke University Press 2019, is an ethnography of the afterlife of slavery as lived in the Bay Area. She is a proud alumni of BYP 100 and is currently working in collaboration with organizers to document and amplify the practice of abolition in everyday life. And also, I have the pleasure of sitting on Black Feminist Futures board with Savannah. And I just think Dr. Savannah Shange is like one of those really cool people. You know how people be trying to act cool, and then like you meet a real cool person, and you be like, oh yeah, that's what people are going for. Dr. Savannah Shange is one of those people. It's like, oh, this is what you're going for when you think you're doing the cool, smart Black femme thing. So, anyway, so happy to talk with you. And
Right,
yeah,
what we might think of as binary thinking, right? These things that are aggressively polarized, Black, white, mask, femme, patriarchal versus feminist, anti-Black versus pro-Black. It is the binary between them that is the primary lie. Like the idea that one is either anti-Black or pro-Black is why there is such an obscene misunderstanding of the circumstances of Tyre Nichols' death, right, at the hands of police. There are people who think that the race of his murderers is relevant, which it is, but they think it's relevant as some kind of a addendum or nuance or exception to the law of anti-Blackness, as opposed to evidence therein, right? Anti-Blackness is at the surface of impact. Anti-Blackness defines the impact, the moment of harm, whether that is blows to a body, remarks about you need to go inside now, a squish on your nose, ooh, you look so pretty now coming out of the hair shop, right? It can also come in the form of lauding certain folks for being so brolic and so masculine in their dark skinnedness because they become fetishized as an object of, hyper masculinity as opposed to peopling, right? It's not about who holds it's not about the vector, right? Anyone, anything can be the starting source of anti-Blackness. This is why Christina Sharp calls it the weather, baby. The droplets land on your skin. You are where the condensation happens. You don't need to be worried about where the condensation comes from, baby. It's everywhere, right? And so I think to me, to come from a legacy that's both anti-Black and pro-Black, I really would like to know who among you comes from a legacy that's not anti-Black. I really want to know. I really do, right? So I guess what I'm upholding is that the ways in which my grandmother, who is, was very fair-skinned, very, child, she looked like, you might as well be Queen of England, right? Colored, not passing because of features and her nappy ass hair and her absolutely Black kind of comportment, right? She also came up she was born in 1923. Like she came up in an era in which what looks like racial ambiguity it was nothing ambiguous about her, right? And she chose to create a family with a brown-skinned man at a time when that was a political choice. And apparently it still is, right? But so I think she was able to both hold the set of ideologies that positioned her in a social milieu in a particular way that also positioned her to say, I want to be a race woman, right? Her kids, she didn't, so I think those things all mix together. Also in calling my grandmother, who was, of course, I think gorgeous. And like, I really saw her, especially when, even as an adult, as a real like paragon of glamour. She came to my 21st birthday at, maybe 68, 70 years old in like an all red pantsuit with a racing stripe down the sides, right? You know what I mean? She like came, this is to a house party at my house. Like she came to New York she got a car service from her house in Jersey, came to New York. You know what I mean? This is a woman's paragon of glamour. And as a child, she was told she was ugly. She was the ugly sister. In part, that has to do with my aunt. My great aunt is a number one stunner. So I'm not saying, but I'm just saying I understand how one of my particular aunts like reflected a certain kind of like mind-blowingly normative beauty that was just, come on, right? Which got her in a world of hurt, to be honest. And so then I think for my grandmother, before, this is 50 years before, she's born 60 years to the year before the Combahee River Collective Statement is written, right? And yet she really was raised as smart ugly, right? In a world in which, like, well, you better hit them books, right? Because you're going to have to work for it. And it actually produced in her a orientation towards kind of, towards education. She graduated high school at 16, college at 20, became a social worker, this and that, right? But really instituted a kind of like autonomy and self-sufficiency that was rare for women of her age. And she's raised by single mom, like all that kind of stuff. But like, she had a way of moving through the world that I think she gave to my mom, my aunts and uncles, but then also passed on to me, that kind of is a cocktail of these different ideologies that I think does produce a pro-Black, anti-Black, or an anti-Black, pro-Black kind of orientation. This is also someone who really taught me to believe in Black people, right? And there's, I think, a kind of respectability that only looks like you're not good enough. And there's a kind of respectability that looks like you could be so much, right? And I really feel like I was raised into the latter, for better or worse.
Okay. And does that, I know you're a feminist, but like, does that inform how you take on Black feminism?
I'm in a weird position, to be honest. I feel very much like a third generation feminist. Like my grandma was very much, for better or worse, she was a social worker. So, she was getting people abortions in probably 1947. You know what I mean? Like, so in some ways, I think there's a level of like pragmatic access to resources around like housing, healthcare, like that piece that I think is very ingrained in the way that kind of I was raised, I was raised in a matrilineal family, right? But then also like, I was raised among the big fancy Black feminists who are on all the books and this and that. And I think in that sense, Black feminism isn't really to me like a gig or a politic.com, but really just a way of moving through the world and a way of life. And so I don't think it's so much whether you're a Black feminist, but just like, what the hell are you going to do with Black feminism? Like, what do you, what do you owe to it? What's your responsibility?